I'm going to start this with the caveat of I was not supposed to be speaking today. Thursday, we had prayer meeting, and Pastor Fred told me about his weekend, and I was like, wow, you've got a lot going on this weekend. I think he had to be in 2 different places at the same time, and I was like, how okay, I hope you have a clone. But, so I said, would it be helpful if somebody took your place on Sunday morning and preached? He goes, yeah, that'd be helpful. And I was like, I'll do that. And then I was like, huh.
How am I going to do that?
Now I got to figure out what I'm going to talk about. And we have just finished our series on stories. Matter of fact, Chuck said that was the final chapter was last week. So we'll call this one the epilogue. Okay. And I was praying about it, and I said, what am I going to talk to you guys about? What story am I going to tell? What am I going to do? And I was like, well, why don't you talk about camp? I was like, I don't want to talk about camp, do I? And then Chuck mentioned something last night about, why don't you talk about camp? It's like, okay. So we're going to talk about camp. When I say camp, is I just spent my second summer at a camp called Carson Simpson Farms. It's a Christian camp, a Christian day camp filled with kids, heat, and Jesus.
Can I go home now?
No, you're going to be here for another 3 hours. Just you.
Okay.
And I was just like, the brief of how I found this place last year was through Indeed.com. I work at, my other job is a school portrait photographer. And 2 summers ago, they, said, we don't have anything for you this summer. I tried to draw unemployment, didn't work. Last summer, I said, I need to find a job. And I found a job at a camp over there somewhere. And I applied for it, and I said, and then didn't get it because somebody else was, I said, so why don't I look for a Christian camp? And I found Carson Simpson Farms on Indeed.com. They hired me a month before camp started. And it was the best job I ever had. I was a camp photographer. I did some other things. I was a counselor. I filled in where I needed to do every skill set I had acquired over the past 20-something years and beyond. I used in those 9 weeks. So I said, do I want to come back? And I told John Curtis, the director of the camp, I said, I'm not planning on not coming back. Yeah, I know, I'm vague. And this year, I applied and I came back in a different role this year. I was the co-op program director. And it has been an interesting year. It's been an interesting journey because the theme of the camp was on the way. And how does that work in the world? How does that work in our Christian life? How does that work in our life? So I put together some pictures last night. Not all of them are mine, and they're probably not in the right order, but this was at 11 o'clock last night when I put these together. So say hello to Eva.
Hi.
She's waving. I figured we'd start with a friendly face. And my job on camp, on Carson Simpson, was to lead. Let me gather my thoughts again. Let me open up my book that I wrote some notes down so I keep myself organized. Because I want to tell you the story of the summer. And we're going to start off with Acts chapter 2. I know, right? The theme verse was Acts chapter 2, verse 28. And I'm going to read that, but then I'm going to go read where Peter got it from. The verse says, you have made known to me the ways of life. You will fill me with joy by your presence. That's the conversation Peter was having with thousands of people. Thousands of people. But he got that from Psalms chapter 16. And I know I told you to go to Acts chapter Acts, and now I'm telling you good Psalms. But this is what it says. It says, protect me, God, for you are my refuge. I said to Adonai, you are my Lord. I have nothing good outside of you. The holy people in the land are the ones who are worthy of honor. All my pleasure it is in them. Those who run after another god multiply their sorrows. To such gods I will not offer drink offerings of blood, or take their names on my lips. Adonai, my assigned portion, my cup. Your safeguard, my share. Pleasant places were measured out for me. I'm content with my heritage. I bless Adonai, my counselor, at night, and my inmost being instructs me. I will always set Adonai before me. With him at my right hand, I can never be moved. So my heart is glad, my glory rejoices. My body too rests in safety. For you will not abandon me to Sheol, and you will not let your faithful one see the abyss. You make known the paths of life. Your presence, you make me know the path of life. In your presence is unbounded joy. In your right hand, eternal delight. That's the theme of camp. That God had a plan. That God makes known the paths of life. That God directed all of these things. And God put all of these things together in my life this summer. And the summers beyond. I have a few things, mementos, that represented my life at camp. First of all, there's my camp's t-shirt, a second staff t-shirt. So it says, theme was on the way. Acts 2:28. Knowing that the paths of God were on the way. And I want to tell you, I love hats. Everybody knows I wear a hat all the time. If you don't know that I wear a hat all the time, well, you don't know me outside of preaching. And by the way, I love that one that you're wearing this morning. It's an awesome hat. But this is a hat that I wore every day for 45 days. Out in the heat, out in the sun. This was my design. As you see, it's a bucket hat that I pinned up the sides. And I pinned up the sides. I want to unpin the sides to show you something, because this is a YouTube exclusive, because they're going to get a zoomed in shot of this. You could tell by looking at my hat what color it was in June. And this is what color it is in August. Lots of sweat, lots of heat, lots of rain, lots of stuff went on in wearing this hat. And this hat and I have a lot of stories and a lot of experiences that we go through. If you look at this is me doing a traditional camp activity, tug of war. It was great. Now, this was one of our carnival days, and if you zoom in closer, you can see what I call my traditional Nickelodeon uniform. This is what I realized after I put this shirt on. If you don't know, it's got a car on it, and the hat on it, and the pants, cargo pants, hiking boots. I go, this is what Nickelodeon told me a camp counselor looks like when I was a kid. Every cartoon that I ever saw, this is what the guy looked like. Whether you liked him or you didn't, this was the uniform. And I was like, okay. So, yeah. And here's a picture of one of the greatest days that we had. When it rained, we did camp outside. When it was sunny and hot and 100 and something degrees, we did camp outside. When it lightened, we got the kids inside, booths and areas and safe places. But this is one of the greatest moments, because that's the camp director right there, John Curtis. And that's me just standing in the rain talking. Neither one of us were bothered by it. I think John actually likes the rain. He likes it when it rains, because the only time he ever plays dodgeball is when it's raining. He needs some help. But it's all right. I don't even know what we were talking about right then, but I saw somebody taking the picture, and I was like, and you notice I'm wearing the hat. So, it's one of those experiences on the way. You're thinking about, we're thinking about the phrase on the way. We're thinking about camp on the way. We're thinking about what it means. The whole purpose of it was to show people that even in the tough times, you still got work to do. You still got things you got to do. You still got to do camp. Now, I heard it all. My job at the camp was to work the cooperative games program, or the cooperative program, which is basically team building and learning exercises, and teaching them to use creativity to solve problems and to work together as a team. Some of these kids don't understand the concept of it's about other people. There are other people involved. It's got to be about them and me and me. Other kids get it. These were our I call them our insects, because we have the different age groups were given different names of different animals, and the pre-K and the pre-kindergartens and the preschoolers were caterpillars and grasshoppers. So these are my insects. And their concept was to play and build something together. And yes, that is a fake alligator that she's holding in her hand. I just realized that's the picture that I put up there. Yeah, the concept of this game that I played with the older kids was they were going to build towers, kind of like a big Angry Birds situation, and then we get to tear them down and shoot them and destroy them. It was fun. We also played a game called Grab Your Gear, which was a game where the kids would run over and grab a piece of gear. There were hundreds of different things. There were like 20 different items of different sizes, and they had to grab a piece, take it back, pass it to somebody else. And then that person had to come and grab another piece of gear, and they had to take it back, pass it to somebody, pass both pieces of gear to somebody else, until somebody is carrying all 20 pieces of gear. Yes, there was a bag in there. Some of them found it earlier than others. Some of them didn't find it at all. Some of them used umbrellas as bags. By the way, the umbrellas that we had in the back of the church are no longer there. 2 of them are in a garbage can. Because I started taking a tally of all the items that I destroyed this summer for camp. And the umbrellas were the first to go. This is the same game, except it's the water balloon edition, where they had to grab a water balloon and pass it. By the 5th water balloon, I gave them a bowl. I'm a man of grace. If you look here, this is the same game, where they're working together, helping each other out. The girls, the red foxes, they started getting it. This is a game where I learned what I can actually do. It's called Rescuers. They had to go and grab somebody and put them in a blanket and carry them to safety. And I said, they're not going to let me drag kids across the campus. They're going to veto this one. They're not going to let me drag kids across the ground. They let me drag the kids. They're letting me drag kids across the ground in a blanket. What? They're letting this happen? Okay. But here's the thing. I had to figure out how to make these games, and the kids thought that there was a way to win. And I taught them later that in this game, nobody lost. Because once they got everybody over, I said, well, now you got to go get your counselors. So they had to go. This is actually one of the brave young ladies who's a counselor. And these are her campers. And the fact is, we taught them that I didn't ever say, matter of fact, there was one time I was explaining the rules, or we got to the end of the game, and they said, we won. I said, did I say anything about winning this game? No, I said the goal was to get everybody to safety. And yes, there's a picture somewhere of me being dragged in one of those blankets, because I'm like, well, I might as well do it. This is the Angry Birds game, or the castle bombardment game. There are times where I set up the room with ropes and set up the room, the coop with ropes. And they had to go through it and do a heist and grab things back. Teaching them to work together. Teaching them that it's not about themselves. Teaching them about this path that we're on. We can't be solo rangers. We've got to do it together with people. That's what being the church is all about. That's one of the things I was learning and I had to teach. Of course, some kids decide to use boxes differently than others. And there's a couple. They're like, they were building their castle and they decided to be in a box to give it more stability. I go, not only is that a bad idea, it's a stupid idea. Don't do that. Because we're about to launch balls and stuff at you, and I can't have you in a box. This is Sebastian. I put him up there because I wanted to remind me of this story. Is one of my games, activities, I didn't call them games. One of the activities that we did was story time. And story time, in order to tell this story, I have to introduce another friend of mine. This is my friend Fred, not Fred, Fred the Amazing Attack Chicken. Fred the Amazing Attack Chicken has been my friend since 1996, when I was was doing drama at a camp in Caswell, North Carolina, Fort Caswell in North Carolina. And Fred the Amazing Attack Chicken had become my mascot this summer because, he hasn't been to camp in a while either. And how did he become the Amazing Attack Chicken? Well, we all had superhero names. And that day, we gave our team in 1996, we're giving each other superhero names. My friend, Stephen, he was Hyper Boy. I tried to be Lazy Boy, but that didn't work out so well. So my name became Other Guy because people would pray for everybody in the team. And they remembered Stephen's name, they remembered Lori's name, they remembered somebody else's name, and then they're like, and that other guy? It's like, okay. And then, so, other guy, the guy who does all the work gets none of the credit. So there you go. And my sidekick was Fred, the Amazing Attack Chicken. So I brought him to camp with me, and I told them, I broke the kids up into groups, and I said, you're going to write me a story. You're going to tell me a story that nobody's ever heard. And your prompt is, how did Fred the Amazing Attack Chicken save the day? And there was interesting stories from he helped clean something to he fought off a monster to, and Sebastian sitting in the middle of the room. He's like, I don't want to do this. It's not fun. It's like, what am I going to do if I don't want to do this? I go, you're going to sit next to that group and just sit there. And as they were doing things, I watched him slide closer to the group, to the point where at the end of their time limit, because we had a time limit, he says, but I'm not done yet. We don't have enough time. We haven't finished yet. That's not enough time to write a story. I go, this other group did it. It was during that same event with another group that I saw a kid sitting over there crying. And this was the same kid that wanted to go home. His name was Robert, and he just cried. He just cried. He's a crier. I understand. I was one of those kids too. And I went over and I sat with him, and I said, what's wrong? He goes, they wouldn't let me in their group. And I was like, well, what do you want to, and it's about halfway through it, because I didn't go to him immediately. I just let him, sometimes you just got to let kids cry. And I went to him and I was like, well, what do you want to do? He goes, do you want to write a story with me? And we wrote a story together. And this one had ninjas and farmers. And apparently Fred the Amazing Attack Chicken had an entire Attack Chicken squad. So I didn't know that. Amazing. And it made his day. And I saw his change. Other times we would tell stories where we would sit in a circle, and I would sit there and I said, okay, we're going to tell a story together that's never been told before, because we're going to make it up. And I would start off a story. I'd toss a ball to give me aspects to the story. And we would change. And let me tell you, you do that with second graders and first graders, you get some really weird stories. But amazing stories. And it was a good time. One of the greatest, became my motto, when all else fails, story time. And then I discovered one of the greatest games and one of the worst games. Well, there are two games at this camp. One's the greatest game in the world and one's the worst game in the world. The worst game in the world is Gaga. If you don't know what Gaga is,
It's fun.
it's horrible. Because you got to spend most of your time like this, and it's an elimination game. And the goal is to be the last person standing. I hate those, especially in co-op, where you're supposed to be working together, right? But one of the greatest games in the world is a game called Silent Ball. Silent Ball. That's where the kids have to be silent, and they throw a ball to each other. Technically, it's an elimination game too, because if you speak or if you drop the ball, you're out. But I didn't play it that way all the time. I just got them quiet. And it was amazing. Sebastian, since he's still up there, came up with another, he said, I make up games all the time. And I got another idea of what we could do with this game. It's like, really, what? He goes, so we came up with toss and roll, where one person rolled it to another person, the person who it rolled to tossed it to somebody else. Adding another level to the game, and I was like, wow, and when we played his game, he was so excited. And the other team, other kids, fell right along inside of it, with it. I got two stories out of him. On the screen behind me are the bullfrogs, which are the 5th and 6th grade boys. They're on stage because at the end of the week, we got chapel. And one of my jobs, one of my responsibilities, was to lead the skit for the week. And it's really tough to lead a skit, to write when you only have 2 opportunities to rehearse with them. The first time we get together, we collaborate on what the script is supposed to look like. The second time, we'd rehearse it. And then Friday came, and they had to perform it. So I didn't mind calling it a skit, and I didn't mind them having their script in their hands. But they're playing Abraham getting ready to go traveling to wherever God told him to go. And watching them work together and learn together and do things together. And get this, some of them extremely talented, others lazy, some of them like, you're never going to be an actor, but it's okay, we'll get you on stage. And the fact that they even include this young man right here who's on the spectrum, he was part of the group, he's on the stage. And this guy right here, he's one of the counselors. It's an amazing guy, because if you notice, he only has one leg. And Jonathan was just amazing. I was counselor with him one day, helping out somebody who was absent, and he'd be like halfway down the field, and I'm just like, I didn't think it'd be so hard to keep up with a one-legged guy. But he's just amazing, and he hung out with the kids and connected with them so great. But yeah, the trick was to tell the stories. It's to tell the stories, to show them how to tell stories together, to work together, to be together, to follow the paths of life together. Okay, I had to prepare you guys for that one. On Wednesdays, there was a treasure that was hidden. And they would have it, last year it was pirates that came out and said, we hid a treasure or we lost a treasure, we need you to find it for me. This year, the guy who usually did that last year, he was absent. He went to Italy for 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of the year. So I stepped in and I became a guy named Phineas Fargoer, who was traveling the world, seeing many different things and going to different places. And I would lose my luggage every week, the luggage being the treasure chest. And it was hidden somewhere on camp, and somebody had to go find it. This was me riding a camel. That was week 1. Week 2, if you notice, I got a long gray hair ponytail right there. And it was fun because kids were like, "Where's the treasure?" I said, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Why are you asking me?" Because when I'm not Phineas, I'm Hair. And I don't know anything. I don't even know who Phineas is. And it was fun playing that game. But they would look and find a box that had some sort of treasure or some sort of prize in it. Take it to the office and get so excited. And listening to the kids who found it. "Yay, we found it." Woo. And then the kids who never found it. "Oh, we never found it." But knowing on the last Wednesday of week 9, I walked up there. I did my Phineas skit, hopped in this thing that looked like this cardboard cut out of a balloon, and I told them, and I went off, and then I started to take off the hat. I took off the ponytail, took off the goggles that I started to wear, and I was like, "Guys, I want you to know, I'm not going to fly in this balloon. It's not going to go anywhere. But there is a treasure box out there. But I want you to know the greatest treasure in the world is not in the box. It's in the friendships you guys have made, and in knowing the love and joy of Jesus Christ and the salvation." So I got to preach. Killing a character officially, but giving them the opportunity to know the love of God. And that's the whole point of the camp. This is one of the events you can see the sadistic, this is John. See the sadistic smile on his face watching kids do some strange and crazy things. He's a great man. God loves him. He loves these kids. The whole purpose of this camp. And what I love about this camp is they have a unity of purpose. Their purpose is to tell kids and teach kids about Christ. And every aspect of that, every aspect of the camp was focused and centered around that one purpose, to tell the kids and teach the kids about Christ and show them the love of God. And I think that's missing in a lot of other ministries. Is what is your unity of purpose? What is the one thing when you come to a place and you go to a church, you go to a place and say, "What is this church all about?" And everybody tells you what it is. It's missing in a lot of places. Tell you a story about this young lady right here. This is I call her Miss Samantha, because when I first met her, day 1, she was looking for some bugs or something on a rock, and I was making sure she wasn't traveling too far away, corralling the kids. And she told me her name was Samantha. And the way she said it and the way she presented herself, I could tell you that Samantha had her own view and rules. She had her rules of how this world was supposed to be, and you had to follow them and be part of them. And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, Miss Samantha." And I called her the whole summer Miss Samantha every time I talked to her. Turns out everybody else just called her Sam. But I'm like, so we connected somehow. And she's just a great young lady. I made a lot of good friends, reconnected with people. God pointed out and gave me new relationships. This is Eric. He's the assistant director of the camp. And yes, we're rowing a canoe on a grassy field because I thought that would be freaking hilarious. And it was. And Eric had helped me through a lot of things. Matter of fact, when I got through some of his situations, when I got through some moments when I had a problem with my car, I had problems with my car all summer. I had to switch just a sensor that was going bad. And it broke down. I was stranded on I had to pull over. It was one of those sensors that shut everything off. And I had to pull over to the side of the turnpike and sit there in traffic for 20 minutes until it would start up again. And I remember going to Eric when my car was in the shop. I said, Eric, I have a spirit of dread. I need to talk about it. I need to share this, get it out there, get my fear out there, get it. And we talked, and we prayed, and I felt better. And he helped me out a lot. I've started saying I need to take pictures of people with me. So not just saying I know this person, I need you to know that I know this person. And that's the one day I did not wear my other hat. And on Thursday night, the reason why I've not been able to be at prayer for the past summer is because on Thursday nights we had a Bible study, or a small group, where these kids, these students, a lot of them just graduated college. Others of them are getting close. And we sat there and we talked about, what's your elephant question? What's your big question? And I started that out that way, and we had some great conversations. And halfway through the summer, I realized that all of these kids grew up at Carson Simpson Farms. They came in as kids. They went through every level, every stage, every school year. Then they became volunteers. Then they became mentors. Then they became staff. Their entire existence, their summer existence, has been at Carson Simpson Farms. And now they're graduating college. And they have to move on to something else. They may not, several of these may not even be able to come back to camp. Can you imagine that? I can't imagine that because I moved, my life was transient. My dad was in the Air Force, so we were never in one place more than 2 years. And when we were in one place, when the parents got divorced, there were still no roots and no ground. When I graduated college, I moved once a year for every 7 years. So you can imagine when they asked me to do a background check, and they asked all the places you lived since 1976. Yeah, how much time? But these kids, and I can call them kids because they're all just graduating college. Sophia's a kid. These kids have lived together, grown up together, and they're getting to that point where they're about to go off and do other things and see other things and be other things. They can't take 9 weeks off in the summertime because they got a real job and they haven't earned 2 weeks of vacation yet. So we had to switch gears and had to prepare them for the next step, for the next part of the path of life. And how can they keep building Christian community? How can they keep a community wherever they go? And I wish I had thought of that line of teaching the beginning of the summer, but I didn't get to it till towards the end. But my prayer is that they all figure these things out and that they find the community in places that they're supposed to be. This young lady right here, Kim, she got a job, like a year-round job at the camp, so she found the loophole. But there's no loophole for the rest of them. So the prayer is, this guy right here is going to Westchester. He's a junior, and he's working on a film club, student org, and I'm like, you're coming to our film festival. Yeah. Put it on your calendar now. You need to meet some people. So, but I'm anxious to see, and I'm waiting to see, and I would long to see what God's going to do with this group of people who love Jesus and love people and love the camp that they work at. If you want to know what it's like to work with kids at a camp, to work at a summer camp, I'll show it to you in these next pictures. This is the picture I wanted to take. These are the pictures that I ended up taking. Look at that face right there. That one right there. That picture ended up not at the beginning or the end, somewhere in the middle. I got that one. Oh yeah, well, I'll end it with Bo, or show you Bo. Bo is, I'm on a 5-year program of stealing that dog away from my camp director. We're in year 2. Treats and sausage biscuits are working so far. But camp is unpredictable. Life is unpredictable. Life doesn't go the way you plan it. Life doesn't, you can't take the picture that you want to take. Because you got to take all those other pictures in between. But if we hold true to these things, putting God in the front of everything, where God is leading us and God is directing us through the paths of life, then we can make it easier. We can trust Him. We can not fret and freak out so much about what's going to happen, because God has it under control, and God has a plan, and it's His plan, not my plan, not your plan. It's His plan. And you get some benefits along the way, like I get puppy love from Bo every morning. He'd be there, and there are some days that I'm just like, when you're tired, you just come in and you just hug on the puppy, and you're just like, oh, he loves you. And there are other benefits. I don't know what that looks like in your life, just a moment of respite and rest and peace, and to know that somebody out there loves you. And how God shows that He cares for you and loves you. But it's there. Let's see what's the last one. Oh yeah, that was the end. That's a clothesline, but it's a cross.
Cross between what?
It's a cross. Cross.
Between what?
Between.
The one that close side,
It's in the shape of a cross. And knowing that it's all comes, that's what. Let me just reread to you Psalm 16 again. Protect me, God, for you are my refuge. I said to, I'm reading from the complete Jewish version, by the way. So if you hear words that you don't recognize, that's why. So we'll start again. Protect me, God, for you are my refuge. I said to Adonai, you are my Lord. I have nothing good outside of you. The holy people of the land are the ones who are worthy of honor. All of my pleasures in them. Those who run after another god multiply their sorrows. To such gods I will not offer drink offerings of blood, or take their names on my lips. Adonai, my assigned portion, my cup, you safeguard my share. Pleasant places are measured out for me. I am content with my heritage. I bless Adonai, my counselor. At night, my inmost being instructs me. I always set Adonai before me. With Him at my right hand, I can never be moved. So my heart is glad, my glory rejoices, and my body too rests in safety. For you will not abandon me to Sheol. You will not let your faithful one see the abyss. You make me know the path of life. In your presence is unbounded joy. In your right hand, eternal delight. I don't know where God is taking you. I don't know where God is leading any of these people that I saw on the foot. I don't know what God has planned for you. I don't know what God has planned for me. But He has shown us the paths of life. And that's sticking with Him and following after Him. And it'll take you to a camp. It may take you to places you never thought you'd have to go. Never even knew existed. Last year, my thought was, am I young enough, am I old enough to be a camp counselor? I'm in my mid-40s. I haven't been to a camp in 30 years, since 1996. And even then, but God knew what he was doing, because he knew what I needed, and he knew that the camp needed me. The co-op program has come into its own, said the director, the camp director, that I have done what they always envisioned it to be, and not every co-op person has done that. Am I patting myself on the back? I said, no. It's because it's what God has taught me and what God has done. Matter of fact, I almost asked him to stop saying that. Gotta stay humble. But I have to thank God that he's brought me here. And he took me to Carson Simpson Farms. And I look forward to seeing what God's got planned next. So pray with me. Father God, I lift up to you this camp. God, I pray a blessing on it. God, Lord, I ask that you'll continue to strengthen it, to grow it. God, that many kids will come to know you through it. Father, I lift up to you the Foundry Church. Lord, help us to have that unity of purpose. Help us to have that succinctness in what you want from us. God, help us to, each of us, just dwell in you, to put you first. And Father God, we ask that you keep us on the path of life. We love you. I love you, Daddy. In Jesus' name, amen.
You call me out upon the waters,